Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this panel discussion about networking. Networking is very important. We hear it all the time, but I feel like sometimes we don't actually know what it means and what we were supposed to do or how we're supposed to network. So this panel discussion is going to answer all of your questions. I am joined by three amazing panelists, and I will let them introduce themselves now. We'll start with you, John, and then Jesse, and then Laura Dean.
Thank you, and good morning. My name is John Combs. I am Assistant Director of Experiential Learning at the Career Center here at FSU, as well as Career Liaison to the College of Social Work and the College of Arts and Sciences, Humanities, and Liberal Arts majors.
Good morning. My name is Jessie Yuan. I'm a current master's student at Florida State University. I work on the employer relations team as a graduate assistant.
Go Knowles. It's your boy, Lord and Official. I'm a master's of public administration student as well in their second year, and I'm a full-time student. I also work for the Florida legislature for session at the moment and the city of Tallahassee.
All right, what an amazing panel. Okay, let's start with the first question. What does networking mean to you personally?
All right, well, thank you. And I think for me, networking is all about connection. I think it's about finding common interests with other people, common goals, even common ground. I think sometimes a lot of people hear networking and they get maybe anxious or stressed, and they're like, I just have to meet people and that they'll give me a job. You kind of have this immediate feeling. And I think it's really just about connection. I think also when you think about it in terms of collaboration, how can you help somebody else? How can they assist you? How can you work together to do something better? So really, it's just about support and celebrating others.
Yeah, so John pretty much hit all the points I was going to mention too. I feel like it's really just about, touching with others to build those personal and professional relationships, with like common interest and just kind of getting more knowledge about the industry as well. So it's beneficial in all those ways. But I think John really answered most of that.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing that I could really think of to add on is that it's like friendship with benefits or acquaintanceship with benefits.
All right. And so Laura Dean, I know you network a lot because you are a future politician, or I think I see you as a future politician. So why do you network so much in like, I don't know if it's in your daily life or if it's weekly. I feel you're always networking somewhere.
Yes, I would like to personally believe that I am always hustling, but I would say I'm always networking. Before I decided to get my master's of public administration, I worked for a career center for a few years. But while I was an undergraduate at a different undergraduate institute, I thought I was going to be an advertising major. And the reason is I really enjoy people. And everyone generally has a story, and the power of networking is you get to hear a little bit of someone's, professional journey, just by being a little braver and asking them, hey, like, what do you do before this, and et cetera. And so it's really just the people that keeps me networking, the people in the drive to make the world a better place.
Yes. So from my people from the Career Center, why do would you say that today, if you do not network, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, or you have one, but it's kind of empty, you don't take care of it, you have like 100 connection or something, would you say it's going to be hard to find a job? It's going to be harder than someone who has networked, who has a nice, strong, solid LinkedIn profile with 500 and plus connections?
I definitely think so. It'll certainly make things harder. The fact of the matter is that in this day and age, when you're sending an application, they're going to Google you, they're going to look up. And if you've got a LinkedIn, they're going to go find it and they're going to look at it. And if they don't see that, it might be a little bit of, well, what else can I learn about this person? I would frame it in the sense of, having a LinkedIn, having an online presence, that's another way for you to present yourself. I don't think it's like you won't get a job if you don't have one, but you're really missing an opportunity to talk about yourself in a different way. You know, there's the resume, there's the cover letter, there's the interview, there's all these ways you present yourself. But online, you can really bring in other media. You can have posts, you can link to other content. You know, you can talk about skills and credentials. There's all these things you can do. So it's really a great opportunity.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Nowadays on resumes, more and more you'll see people including their LinkedIn in their information because it's such a big platform now. And so I always tell students whenever I work with them for drop-in advising, you know, like start building that LinkedIn because like John said, online presence is such a big thing nowadays. And it's also, I love like the skills portion and how you can be tagged in other people's posts so they can see everything that you're connected with and all the achievements you have. And I also like to put it in the way when I work with students is that like a resume that you submit is going to only have as much experience as you can fit on that one page. But then LinkedIn, you can have all your experience. So it's just building more on what your qualifications are. And just like with networking in general, it definitely gives you a heads up when you do compare yourself to someone that does not have that networking experience, because you do have those connections, more of that understanding and like professional verbiage when you talk to people, and more of just like it's just more of an understanding about how to communicate with them, I believe.
All right. And so, Jesse, how do you build a strong and solid LinkedIn profile?
So we actually have an amazing LinkedIn guide at the Career Center, but it's really just, you know, going through it's pretty simple. Like they have all the steps you have to go through, but it's just kind of working on your descriptions of your like for all your experiences and kind of just figuring out what qualifications and skills do I have that showcase who I am as a person and an employee and just, you know, as someone in the professional world. And so there's lots of resources that you can use to build that LinkedIn profile, but just putting in all your academic experiences, skills, certificates, all of those things.
Okay. Lauradine, do you have a strong and solid LinkedIn profile?
People say so. I view it as something that always should be you know, getting improved upon, you know.
Did you get connection thanks to your LinkedIn account?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think there's some real tangible benefits as well too when it comes to just like properly maintaining a LinkedIn account, right? You kind of get a scope of like what employers you appear for when they search. And so maybe if you're not appearing in searches for your industry, you might need a little more industry experience. And then on a personal story, right? Some of the magic of LinkedIn. I had a good buddy who I knew. He moved out to like maybe like San Francisco to work for you know, a big tech company, and he was laid off in the past month. But with that network of people, you know, he made a post to let the whole community know, because you also still have to use LinkedIn practically. Because if you're not, like, you know, LinkedIn without initiative is a waste of a LinkedIn, in my opinion. And so he made a post. He was like, hey, y'all, I got my dream job post undergrad and I got laid off. And then you look at the comments and it's nothing but other people from my connections, because, you know, we know some of the same people. And they're like, you know, hey, like, have you thought about blah, blah, blah? Or even the nicest post I think that someone can comment is just commenting for reach. And then you could see how many people viewed the profile through the impressions. And so, you know, it's those small ways of trying to help up our community and tribe that I feel like LinkedIn is best at.
All right. What about you, John? How has your LinkedIn profile helped you, or not only LinkedIn? I don't know why I went towards LinkedIn, but how networking has helped your current career?
Well, I will say for this job, actually, I was complimented on my LinkedIn profile when I came on. And so I think, like I said, it was searched. People did look at it. You know, it was also a way for me, because my background is actually not in career services. My background is in music. And so, you know, with a cover letter and a resume, you really, it's very tailored, it's very specific. You don't really have the opportunity to get as personal all the time. But in the LinkedIn, the About Me section, you really have some room to talk about your story and your history. And that's what I did. I talked a little bit about my background in music, how I believe that transfers into other areas, how that's kind of developed me and developed skills that I want to use in my career outside of music or in music. Again, you know, I can kind of craft a narrative myself, if you will. I'll also say that aside from LinkedIn, I've had immense help from previous faculty mentors and teachers I've worked with, just doing well in coursework and being there at office hours or contributing in class. These people were able to recommend me. They were able to serve as references for me. And when I was under consideration, they called these people and they were able to say, you know, this person, you really do want to have this person on your team. And so it really helps. You guys should always think that there's, you know, you're always on and people are always watching you. And so you should always be thinking about, you know, how can I help others? How can I contribute?
It's very interesting that you saw your professors and you being a student as networking. I never saw it this way, but it's, yeah, you're totally right. They are the people actually in the end that recommend you when you're out of school. You might also have a job, but you spend most of your time with your professors, depending on, I mean, for me as a graduate student, that's that's how it is. They're the one recommending me for future jobs. So yes, see your professors as a network. All right, so let's go in the questions now. How do you prepare for a networking event? What kind of questions are good to ask at a networking event?
I'll lead us off here. I think the big thing is researching yourself first. I start there. Research yourself, you know, really think about what you're interested in. What are your values? What skills do you have? What skills do you want to develop? I think the more clarity you have there, that kind of clarity will translate to passion when you're speaking to someone. You know, I know some people, they like say, oh, what's your passion? What are you passionate about? But really what you should think about are your interests, your values, your skills. Clarity on those points will then sound like passion when you talk to somebody. The second big thing is to research the people that you're going to be speaking with. You know, find a list of the employers, go to their website, find them on LinkedIn, find what their interests are. Maybe do a Google search in the news, see if they've got any news stories lately. Come in well prepared, because this will just inform you as you're talking to people.
Yeah, so my big thing was just research too. I really love the point that John just made about research yourself. I mean, that's a really big point because it's going to be a two-way conversation. It's not just going to be the employer talking. It's going to be a conversation, you know? And so for me, I was just like, research the company, information about the recruiter, like, because most times when you go to a networking event, you'll know ahead of time who's going to be there. So utilize that resource, you know, take your time to kind of figure out, what do I want to ask? What common interest do we have that I can bring up? You know, what is something that I can show that we have related to kind of like build that connection to begin with. Another thing to prepare is just to kind of relax, you know, and like be yourself, because it can be very nerve-wracking to go to a career, to go to like any career event where you have to like network and talk to people who are in roles that you hope to be in one day, because you're just like, it can be very intimidating. So just taking that time to relax and prepare yourself for that research, so that way you can relax and just be yourself at the actual event. And then the second part with the questions, if we want to do another round with that, or should I start with what questions to ask?
You can give some questions.
Yeah. And so questions, I would say one of the big things is, you know, like, how did you get into the role you currently are in? You know, like, what is the process? What are the steps? Do we like any certifications? And another question I love to ask employers too, is where did you go to college and what did you study? Because sometimes what they studied, it does not correlate to what they're in currently. And I love to know like how that pathway led them to where they are now. That's like one of my favorite questions to ask employers when I meet with them.
That's so interesting. So Lauradine, for you, I would want to know, how do you, because I don't think you go to specifically networking event. It's just like you meet people and they become part of your network. So how do you do that?
Okay. So I have a good example from last night, actually. So let me grab it. Last night I was able to wander into the 2020 Trustees Commission legislative meeting, right? And so I come on in, and I believe, especially when you know, talking about like undergrads, you know, graduate school students, there are two main ways I believe in relating to people. Relating to people through ambition, because let's be real, we are still building our resumes. And then relating through people through naivety as well, because, you know, a lot of these things are for entrance level people, you know, or that entry level, still climbing mid-manager. And so I had a conversation because like literally I didn't know a single person. And so, but I still grabbed the food. So I grab the food. I see this guy all by himself. I come up, I talk. He ends up being the lobbyist for like the school board, like commission or something like that. And so instead of relating to ambition, in my head, I was like, oh, let's go naivety. And so I was like, well, how has this experience been for session? Tracking bills, like, is your process a little different from mine? And he's like, I calculate everything. I know how everything is going to go because that's how my job really demands it. And there is really no like reaction on my part. And so like those two things are pretty great, I would say, as well as always dressing the part, in my opinion, if you can. I truly believe confidence is 10 points. And then also on the also because it's more than likely going to be an industry event, find out what's relevant in the industry, right? Because I'm in government and politics for the next, say, 30 days, because we're about halfway through session, people will not stop talking about session and all the controversial bills or whatnot. But, a tech industry or education might be a little different. And so by looking at that social media profile for however you found the graphic, who are the bigger employers in the industry and different things like that, those are my ways of kind of making myself comfortable at these type of events.
And what are your two favorite questions to ask when you network?
So I'm really on the spot every single time. Like I don't really have like a go-to, but it would probably be around what Jesse said earlier when it's ask them what they do, and then you can kind of build off that. But I always like to kind of like favor the likes. So like, what do you like about what you work? Is there anything you're enjoying? What are you looking forward to? And then, they keep giving you information. You keep asking questions to build on that information. And heck, by the end of the conversation, you might know if you want that job or not.
What about you, John? Do you have two favorite questions?
I mean, I always, because of my background, I'm always interested in what people's backgrounds are and kind of where they came from. What is your background in? How did you get into this industry? How did you get into the field? I also like to ask about challenges in the role. So, for example, what are the big issues? And even if it's not like an industry that I might work in, but I always like to hear what people are kind of struggling with, because I feel like in a lot of ways, different industries are interconnected. Students might be interested, and it's always, I think that when you ask about challenges, it provides a broader perspective. So, and usually people are eager to talk about things that they've been working on or solutions they have to those challenges. So I find that also creates some stimulating discussion as well.
All right. What are your advice for a shy person who needs to network, because everybody needs to network, but is shy, so it's hard. So if you could give, each of you could give one advice to that shy person watching us right now.
Okay, I'll start us off. Hello, shy person. I hope your day is going well, right? And so this is actually a really big mantra for me, right? And I think this is a big mantra when it comes to learning any skill inherently. And basically, when I was younger, I heard a podcast and they said, you only need to be brave for a moment. And they were talking about swimming, because like in order for you to learn how to swim, you got to get thrown into the pool. In order for you to skydive, you got to jump out of the plane. In order for you to network, you don't need to be brave for the whole approach. You just need to be able to be brave enough to say hello and look at someone, and hopefully they respond. And then, hopefully it all gets in gear. So that's my piece of advice. You don't have to be brave the whole time, only a second. And then from there, it'll all come naturally, hopefully.
I love that advice. I think that's wonderful. I would second that. I'd also say just set some goals for yourself. Not to exhaust yourself, but set goals. I'm going to talk to 3 people, or I'm going to talk to someone from this place, and that place, or, setting some concrete goals, I think can help. So that way, how long you need to be brave, for example, that you can really plan in advance and research. So definitely, I think the goal setting can help.
And the advice I had, most of my experience with networking has been in like career events. And so the way I'm always interacting with employers and people that want to recruit people. And so the way I see it is that these recruiters want to talk to you. You know, like they want you to be here. And most times they love talking about themselves. So like ask them questions, get to know them more, get to know about their industries, but don't be like, it's very easy to be scared. You know, like I always tell, whenever I see a freshman or sophomore at a career fair, I always give them kudos because I'm just like, you're preparing yourself to be better when you come back as a junior and senior. So practice makes perfect, and know that they want to talk to you. Like they want to get to know you, and they want you to get to know them as well.
Those are all great advice for our shy viewer. For my last questions, we've been talking a lot about networking for a job, but what are the immediate benefits of networking when you are a first year and you have a long way before being on the job market? Why should you still network your first years and not wait your last year or the last few months before you go on the job market? Let's start with you, Jessie.
Yeah, so a big part for me is that, like I said, practice makes perfect, you know, so just like networking now is going to help you network much better in the future, but also it'll help you gain confidence in your abilities, gain more knowledge about the industry and what it looks like to be in the industry and just like, you know, everything that's happening there. And then it also helps you practice communication in that environment. And so like I mentioned earlier, you know, like being able to understand what a conversation looks like in that profession and the verbiage they might be using and just like basically how to talk to them. And I think that, you know, it builds connections that will be helpful in the future for sure for jobs, but also it's just nice to have someone to like reach out to for resources, you know, someone that can give you information about, if you have a question, a specific one about a role they're in, they can provide that for you. So it's going to help you gain knowledge about what you want to do in the future. And so if you're looking for that in the last like month before you get a job, you might realize this isn't what I want to do versus if you start earlier on and kind of figure out then, is this the path I want to be going down?
John?
I agree. I also think that when you speak to people, when you're networking, you can really learn a lot. Industry knowledge, you can kind of learn about trends. The workplace is very dynamic. And so there are new jobs being created. There are jobs that like I wouldn't even know about. We don't even know about that certain industries are creating, that they're hiring people to do these things. And going to a networking event, you can start talking to someone and they can say, well, you know, we're hiring somebody to do what you're talking about. So you might start to realize that there are opportunities that you didn't even know about before. And then that can then inform your preparation, the way, you know, the classes you're taking, the other people you want to start, you know, meeting, books you want to read, conferences you want to go to. So you can really learn a lot. I think it's not just like, oh, this person can recommend me. You really can learn about opportunities that maybe you didn't know about before.
Yes, and to be the last person to kind of tackle the question, I would also say as a first generation student where like, you know, my mom had a job, but that was really it. I really didn't fundamentally understand what a career looked like. Like a prime example, right? Because I do have a history in employer relations and just working for a career center, I've also realized one of the things from having that LinkedIn created early, a lot of people spend 2 years at a career center and then they work as a recruiter for like a major Fortune 500 company. And so now, you know, I could be like, oh, well, based off of the experiences that I'm getting now, I can try to go into recruiting. And then from recruiting, you can end up becoming like a project manager. And you just kind of get to see, I've always liked to say life is an RPG, a role-playing game. And you get to see all the different combinations your class can branch out into. And then as well, you can also message people and different things like that, because you know, sometimes networking isn't necessarily about you. And because you know that like this accounting pathway goes this way, you know, a friend might have an accounting question or anything like that. And now because you've kind of seen how the world goes in that direction, you can give advice, therefore helping your friend and increasing your network. Because at the end of the day, the goal for networking is everyone winning.
Yes, and I would, because we've been talking a lot about the industry, and I would add that for academia, networking, as you talked about, I think, John, earlier, collaboration. You network for future collaboration, you network for, I mean, job market in academia is so tough that if they know you, then you have a better chance. Well, again, thank you so much for your time for this amazing panel on networking, and I'm sure now our viewers are experts in networking.